Buddha. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Buddha.
Welcome, everybody, to Next Level Good Vibes Only.
With Jessica and Darren Salquist, your power couple.
Woo! Ooh, that was a new title. We're going to own that one.
Yeah.
So we're super excited to be here with you today. We're so grateful that you are here with us.
Gratitude.
Yeah, we want to share our gratitude each and every time. Today, Darren just shared this really great quote. Super simple and super small, but it's very big. Which Buddha said, and so the mind is everything, what you think you become. And that really aligns with what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about isn't Dr. James Doty? Yeah,
Yep,
Dr. James Doty. And he wrote the book, Mind Magic. And Darren really, he's been listening to some of the book and the philosopher's notes from Heroic and really keeps bringing it up to me. He's like, you really need to listen to this. You really need to listen to this. So he talked about some of the topics and the themes that we'll talk about today, and he sold me. So we're going to talk about it today, but I thought we would share a little bit about James Doty. He is the founder of the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research. And what else do you know about him, Darren?
Well, I mean, his story is kind of a pretty cool story on how he came to be, right? As a 12-year-old child, he ended up walking to a magic store. But before he walked into that magic store, his life was a little bit challenging. His dad was a alcoholic and very abusive. His mom was battling depression and was a paraplegic or partially paralyzed, and just a very rough childhood. And one day at the age of 12, to kind of escape some of the stuff that's going on in the house, what he would do is get on his bike and go for a bike ride over to the next town. And he kind of mentioned he was always into magic, and he had this kind of, what he was talking about, this removable thumb that you do the thumb game with, or with that thumb magic trick or whatever. And he had lost it. And when he was riding his bike in town, he came across this magic store. And so he ended up walking to this magic store where he met this lady named Ruth. And Ruth just kind of was talking to him and having this conversation. And he's like, I'm looking for, this removable thumb, blah, blah, blah. She's like, okay, I really don't know a whole lot about the magic store here because my son owns the store and I'm just covering why he's out at lunch. But they ended up striking up a conversation. And during that conversation, she got to learn a little bit about James. And what she offered him was, if you want to come back, I'm going to be here for about 6 weeks, and I'd love to have some conversations with you and talk to you about, different ideas and philosophies. As again, she got to hear some of his story and his upbringing, what was going on. And he was just kind of intrigued. And that's kind of what led to where they ended up talking about manifestation.
Yeah.
And he even said, as a 12-year-old child, I was like, I didn't know what that was. And I was like, what is this hocus pocus? That was just more magic, But what he ended up becoming is, he ended up becoming a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, here's this child from this upbringing, obviously not the best, not very much support from his parents. But yet, through this conversation that he had with Ruth, really made the biggest change and biggest difference in his life.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of watching a couple of podcasts. One, he was on Mel Robbins, and then he was on this other one that we watched called LA Stories. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about him, and the thing is, he's passed away. He was 69. I think he just passed this last year or two. He passed away. But what I loved about him, seeing him, that when he was talking about his past and he was talking about his life and everything that he did, he would get emotional.
Especially with the magic store with Ruth. Yeah.
And what it was all about was just him connecting, and then him recognizing as a child that Ruth saw him. Yeah. That she could see the hurt or see the angst that was going on inside. And she just opened up and welcomed him into this new life, into this new conversations, and changed his life.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that he was interested. He was curious, right? He's intrigued. He kept coming back and meeting with her, and she taught him how to meditate, and it sounded like, some energy and just really teaching him things that probably he didn't even realize we're going to make such a big impact in his life as an adult.
Yeah.
But as you said, he's neurosurgeon, scientist, meditation practitioner. And his thing is the things that are big for him are compassion, visualization, and intentional living itself. So today we're going to talk about 3 topics that he talks about. And one of them is calming the mind before we create, intention plus visualization, and then the compassion is a superpower. So those are the areas we're going to kind of dive into a little bit today. And then we have some questions we're going to ask you to just help you deeper think into that topic and kind of evaluate, reevaluate, deeper thought, a think tank. We're going to go deep think tank. And then at the end, we're going to give you some reflection questions too.
Yeah.
And what I would like to do is some of those reflection questions are very themed, and maybe we can put it in the description as a little bonus to give you some written journal prompts.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is like one of the things I'm working with a lot of clients is I always kind of talk about journaling. And if any of those that are listening have a journal practice, awesome. Good for you. You kind of see the value in it. You see what it brings you. Those of you that are curious about journaling, stick through to the end and we're going to ask a couple questions. And these are the type of questions that you can answer in your journal to kind of help move you forward. And a lot of journaling is this really deep thought, reflective thought. And you can start your morning off with intention on how do you want to show up to your day and just thinking, I want to have an excellent day. I want to have a sunny day, a sunshine day. I want to have a day full of smiles. And then how do you go about obtaining that, right? You put that at the forefront of your mind. Or if you have a goal that you're working on, what steps might you take? If I want to be a healthy eater, how am I going to go about that day? And just think about, I'm a healthy eater and what am I going to do? And every time I have that opportunity to stop and eat, that thought that I had this morning and that what I wrote down in my journal is going to come to the forefront of my mind when I make my choices. And so that's kind of what journaling will bring to you. And also just in the reflection in the evening, whether it's gratitude or anything like that. And they kind of talk about a life well lived is a life that is worthy of review. And so thinking about how your day went and what do you want to review in your day, the good points, the things that you did well and where you showed up for yourself, and then the opportunities that you might be able to improve on.
Thank goodness I have saved every journal that I've ever written in my life.
Yeah. You got a lot of journals? Yeah.
I have a beautiful box of journals and I have never thrown a journal away.
Yeah.
I'm really connected to them and I do reflect back, but I'm really excited to reflect back like years into my life that I was living before.
Yeah. I mean, that's a cool thing too, that you can go back and open up one of these books and see where you are in that moment and then celebrate how far you've come, right? And there's that version of you writing those things down in that book that helped get you to where you're at today. Because that's something that Dr. James Doty talks about as well is getting it out of our minds, putting it on paper, writing it down, pen to paper, reading it, reciting it, even creating an affirmation around it, meditating around it. And this is kind of the process to manifestation, right?
Right. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So let's jump in it because I don't want to jump too far. I got a couple of things, obviously, that I always like to jump on and get ahead of the game. But
so we're talking about training the mind, right? We want to reshape. And the first topic is about calming the mind before you create. So if we want to intentionally create our future, what do we need to do? We need to calm our mind, which then also quiets our nervous system. And I think I thought about that a lot today when I was rushing through things. And I left work and I got in my car and drove off. And I drove back 2 times and went back into my office because I couldn't find something, and so my nervous system was like heightened. I was starting to feel this stress and I was like, oh my goodness, like, I need to calm my mind. I need to just stop and take some breaths and create a calm presence. Otherwise, I noticed my heart rate going up and I was in it. It made me forgetful. I kept going back to the car, driving off and then saying, oh, I forgot this. I forgot that. And then I'd go back. So I went back into the office twice. So calming the mind before you create is so important because in that mindset that I was in, I was completely distracted.
Yeah.
I was fight or flight. I was like living in a stressful survival mode, even though that's not the craziest stress that you can possibly have. But I did go into survival mode a tad bit, and I realized and even getting in your car and having that heightened nervous system and being stressed, that's not the safe either. That you need to stop, calm, be present. I got to my appointment and I took more breaths, and then I was calm and I went in. So
yeah, you might not show up to, you're driving very well if somebody cuts you off or right?
Yeah.
So you might react a little bit. And that's one of the things that James Doty talks about your nervous system. You got your autonomic nervous system. You're coming from your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. And what you just kind of talked about, that flight or fight mechanism, is that sympathetic nervous system, to where if we're in this heightened state, which is safety, right? It's the fears keeping us going into a situation where our heart rate, our blood pressure, everything is elevating. So we're able to respond. How is that going to work when we're trying to calm ourselves and going into this position of really thinking about what I want to accomplish today?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard if you're in that sympathetic, right? So if you can bring your heart rate down, bring your breathing, control that with your breathing, you come down in the parasympathetic. And this is where Dr. James Doty talks about that parasympathetic is what he calls the love mode. The sympathetic is what he calls the fear mode. And so kind of just leaning into that when you're going through your day, what mode are you in right now? Are you in your love mode or are you in your fear mode? And so those are things when you just brought that up about your heart rate, right? Thinking about certain things. And even to me, I had I misscheduled an appointment today. I thought it was at 3:30 and it's 3:30 shows up and I look, oh my God, it was at 2:30.
Yeah.
And I totally made an error. And this is a bad thing on my side where I didn't have my schedule right. And there's a couple other things that led to that, but it's neither here nor there, right? And my heart rate went up. I started thinking negatively and start going down this path. It doesn't help. It happened. Right. So
how did you calm yourself to respond though?
I just needed to tell myself, like, there's nothing I can do about it right now. It wasn't intentional. Let me relook at my schedule. I have this time now since I don't have this meeting with this individual because I missed it. So let me take this time and look at my next week's schedule and make sure everything is lined out for next week. And I wrote everything out as we're going into August. So I started my August calendar and start writing things down. I wrote down all my appointments, my set appointments. And so I have that down on my face on what I have my monthly calendar. Then I'll go into my weekly calendar after that and break that down even more specific. But I needed to be in that parasympathetic mode.
Yeah, to think clearly. I mean, being calm is a advantage to a lot of things. It actually not being calm becomes the weakness. And what I like about just really focusing on the nervous system is that it actually influences every decision we make. And as our examples we're sharing, when we're you said like you get in a car, are you going to react well to others? If my nervous system is chaotic and crazy and I'm in fight or flight, that's going to influence all my decisions that I'm going to make. I mean, just even
your reactions, right?
Just being super busy, getting on a call and trying to make a decision. It's not clear.
Yeah.
It's not clear. And so, I think that calmness of the breathing and meditation is so helpful. It changes your brain over time.
Yeah. And I think even just being in that sense, knowing that you're in that position, right? And so knowing that you're in this heightened state, that's where the breathing, what you're just talking about, the breathing and taking a breath to bring yourself back down. And where do you need to be? What would be the best spot for you to be in? Love mode or this fear mode right now, especially getting into the car?
Yeah.
Right.
And that is, I love the love versus fear. That's something that I've been journaling a lot about. And I think it applies to everything. And it absolutely applies to this. What we're talking about is the decision or the thought I'm having from love or my response I'm making from love or fear. And I think we've mentioned it maybe one other time is that a lot of responses come from fear. And to change that, help that nervous system, change the parasympathetic system, that meditation and breath work, and maybe even putting down your thoughts just so you can let go and release them is one way to calm your mind.
Yeah.
Because it's so calm your mind before you create. It's real tough to create something when you are distracted, stressed, and fearful.
Yeah. And like, I think you might have called it out already, but if not, that the nervous system, right, influences every decision we make.
Yeah.
When we go into this. So it's important to know what nervous system are we actually in when we make certain decisions?
When I think just our conversation we had earlier when I was rushing around and we were trying to make a decision, and stress in itself narrows your thinking. Mm-hmm. So like I was feeling stressed, and then my communication, and it narrowed my ability to problem solve. Yeah. And I think that's really important to recognize too. Those are those moments where you may just need to pause and say, even if you're talking to someone, hey, can you just hold on one moment? I just need to recoup and, get myself back to a calm state.
Yeah. And thinking about in a leadership position, right? Do you want your leader making a decision from that fear mode or from the love mode, right? That person or he or she is actually in a calm, reasonable, thoughtful, making a very specific decision or a critical decision, not from that fight or flight mode, right? It's going to narrow that critical thinking when we're in this stress mode. So absolutely. Think about that too as you're stepping into your life, making certain decisions. Where are you? And just if you're in that stress mode, just stop, take a breath, create that pause, and see if you can clear your mind there for that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the practices, the examples we were noting is that what can you do to do that? And I think one of the things that I'm also bringing back into my day is when I wake up, I'm spending at least 5 minutes there in peace and quiet, meditating with no distraction. Notice when you wake up, what do you reach for first? And I will guess, I might be wrong, that most people reach for their phone, not only because it's their alarm and everything, it's their planner, it's all that.
Honk your horn 2 times.
Right.
If you reach for your phone.
Yeah. But I think also you may be using it for a great cause, but the distraction and the addiction of it, all of a sudden you've got, something up that really is not necessary. So I want to challenge you to, when you wake up, if you need or you must touch your phone, you're not going to leave your phone behind. Believe me, it's attached to the hip. Go in another room, or if you have space to sit up in your bed and, it's not a distraction to anyone else, then take that 5 minutes. Don't do it laying down because you just fall asleep, but sit up, go sit on the couch, do something where you get 5 minutes of silence before you touch your phone or do any other activity, before you drink coffee, before you do anything else, just to give yourself some calmness before you're going to create your beautiful day.
Yeah. And then also just thinking about if you're at work and you get this email and the first reaction is to respond to that email. Yeah. Again, where are we coming from? What response mode are we coming from? With that fear mode or the love mode? Typically, if it's an email that's maybe not be the most polite or is accusing or attacking, and you feel like you got to defend yourself, you're going to kind of create this defensive email. But could you instead go ahead and type it out, but just don't hit send yet, right?
Don't even put the person's name in the send yet, because that's my new trick. My new trick is don't put any name in the send or the to. Yeah. Write out your email and really finalize it before you even put a name in there.
Yeah, read it once or twice, and maybe read it out loud and say, is this really what I want to say? Yep. And is this how I want to come across? And then again, we got AI right now, right? Maybe you can have them rewrite this in a more loving tone, right?
More compassionate, loving tone.
Take what I just said and put it in a loving tone like Mr. Rogers, right? You're not going to go wrong if Mr. Rogers is writing it for you.
Yeah. So we want to ask you to ask yourself, when during your day do you feel most reactive, and what would happen if you paused before responding? So if you can, you are welcome to pause the podcast and ask yourself that question, and maybe journal or make a note when it is, and you can come back to it. So when during my day do I feel most reactive, and what would happen if I paused before responding? Mm-hmm. That's a good one. All right. Next
Topic
one.
2, intention plus visualization. This key concept
I like it.
Emphasizes that intention is more than wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And so what does that sound like to you? More than wishful thinking, right?
I believe that a lot of people, when you talk about visualization and when you talk about manifestation, people believe that some people's concepts are that you just believe it and it happens. And what James is saying is basically like, there's action behind all of that. There's not just this like wishful thinking of like, I wish that I have $10 million, right? It's about being really clear about what you really, really want and creating action around it. And there's the thought, the visualization, the believing it, like getting up in the morning and visualizing my best self, my future version of me very specifically, but then being like, okay, and then now what do I do? Like what action am I going to take? So there's also a connection, and Joe Dispenza talks about this too, is you're creating the feeling. You're creating the feelings as if I am. So if I wanted a goal to get on the podium for High Rocks Nashville in 2026, then I would visualize myself like doing the whole High Rocks and walking up onto that podium. And I would get that feeling, that emotion in my mind, my whole body feels it. It's really about what the mind, our mind is doing. And then I replay that. And so, but I'm visualizing it as I'm doing it, but I'm also taking action, because visualization does not replace effort.
Yeah. I can't remember what basketball coach, Brendan, maybe you might know, but there's a basketball coach that at the beginning of the season, he brought all the players out, put the ladder underneath the rim, and they cut down the net.
Oh, except for like the last.
I don't remember.
Or he did something.
Right.
Yeah.
But they visualized because that's what they do at the national championship.
I did see that. I don't know who, but.
Brendan, do you know anything about that?
I don't, but it sounds like something maybe Phil Jackson would have done, just because he's known as he was like the guru of having players do yoga and have mindful practices. Yeah. But I don't know who would do that before the season, but that's a great thing to do, even like with kids.
Yeah. Like Coach V or something.
Maybe. Yeah. I'll Coach is it Valvano?
Yeah, I think so.
Jimmy, but
right. A lot of coaches do that though. They go through this visual. What's your goal? They all want to win the championship, right? But that's what they're visualizing. And what do we need to do to get there?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the part where this comes in: intention plus visualization. What is your intention? And this is where they talk about what you repeatedly focus on is what's gonna show up in your life. And focus is on this right now, everybody. What are you focusing on? Yeah. What do you see that's showing up into your life right now? Are there good things? Are there bad things? Or what does that look like for you? And the thing is as you're working towards this, what manifestation is and what James Doty talks about in this is, it's when your subconscious mind starts showing up in these moments that you're not even thinking about, right? It's the subconscious is now starting to come forward. It's like me going to the grocery store and walking by the donuts and look, I'm going to get a donut. And like, my subconscious shows like, is that really what you want to do? I thought we weren't doing donuts, right? And so that's when that starts coming into play, that subconscious mind is like, no, I thought we weren't eating donuts any longer. And that sometimes helps me walk away from those donuts, right? But this is where when that starts coming into play, or if I start in the morning my day, I'm a healthy eater and this is what my day is going to look like. This is how I'm going to go about it. If any situation comes in front of me, I'm going to make sure I pause.
You visualize walking by those donuts and being like,
I can visualize walking right past them, or I can visualize stopping and having a conversation about myself and asking why, right? When I get myself into a situation, there's a lot of different things that you can visualize. So when that happens, that it creates that pause. And we've talked about this before. If you guys are looking to buy a green Subaru, all of a sudden you're going to see green Subarus everywhere, because that's what is at the forefront of your mind. So it's the same thing with this visualization or manifestation. And the reason that this book really caught my attention is I feel like where I'm at in my life somewhat I've manifested. Where we live, I always wanted to live out in the country and have acres, right? And so we have that. I always wanted the classic car. I have that. I always wanted to have a wife that was going to help make me a better individual. I have that. And going through this, and it just didn't happen. It was something that I would say, obviously, that was working for me when I met my wife. I met Jessica and going into the position of what do I need to do to get a classic car, and working on that with my father, which was super awesome, being able to spend that time and, you know, good times and bad times working on the vehicle with him. But again, it's memories that we have.
Yeah.
And then just where we're at out in the country. And it's just something that I would say I visualized, and being where I'm at today. I didn't visualize this moment of doing a podcast or being a coach or being a personal trainer and doing these things. This is something that just kind of was a calling for me to go into this direction once I left St. Luke's.
Yeah.
And now where I see myself is I see myself on stage. I see myself doing keynotes, talks. I see myself doing workshops for organizations, which I have already. Mm-hmm. But I see myself on a bigger stage. I see myself growing. And I know that's going to come forward for me because that's where my focus is.
Yeah.
And doing the work to get me there. That manifestation is not just wishing for something and think it's going to happen and show up on my doorstep like Amazon. I need to do the work.
Yeah.
As long as I'm doing the work, that's going to give me the chance to make that happen.
Yep. Just like I said, that visualization doesn't replace effort. It actually directs it. So what I just want to be really clear too, of like you seeing yourself on stage and experiencing that feeling of you walking on the stage and people clapping and you sharing profound information and connecting with people. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, that's part of that visualization is that meaning and feeling that you will have, that emotion that it's going to bring you, mm-hmm. being present at that moment. Because then when you get to that moment, you'll be like, that's that feeling, you know, that's that feeling. So, I've said this before in some of our early podcasts, probably 2019, 2020, but when I used to present, I mean, I still present, but when I would present, I would go into the bathroom and just sit there and breathe so that I'd visualize, and I would visualize me speaking clearly and calmly. That was always my affirmation of I'm going to speak clearly and calmly. My responses will make sense. Sometimes sometimes the thought was like, oh, I'm just in totally tongue twist and I don't know what I'm going to say. But then I would do that. And it created such a different setting from when I would go into maybe presenting or facilitating, and I didn't do that. I was coming more from a sense of fear and not very confident from the place where when I prepare myself, when I visualize and when I create the emotion and when I see it being attained and being done, it's a huge difference. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
I really encourage people to do that.
Yeah. It's kind of fun because like this weekend I worked on some projects. I have an offer I'm working on with this organization, and what I have a potential possibility of doing is doing a presentation to a bunch of men and women that are mechanics, and trying to connect this and not thinking coming from a place of self-development, but connecting to what they do to how it just kind of really resembles life as well, right? Mechanics, what do? They solve problems. And as I was going through this process, one of the things when I was kind of rehearsing what I was going to present, I start playing the song from Eminem, Lose Yourself, right? You got one shot, you got one chance. And that's what I'm kind of thinking is like, we kind of have one shot here to make this presentation to these individuals to see if I can wow them. And so knowing that I'm going in with this possibly one opportunity, I want to show up as my best. Mm-hmm. And that's what playing that song meant for me, is that I have this one shot, right? This one chance to go in and make this presentation. So I want to make it my best. So this is where I'm putting my effort into this, and to have that visualization of going in and knowing that I'm going to wow these individuals because of my presentation and the work that I put into this to make the connection to what they do in their roles of mechanics to how this kind of really unfolds into life.
Yeah.
And one of those things is that toolbox, right? They have multiple tools, just like we do, to help us in our life.
And they need to make sure they're doing maintenance on whatever it may be, their vehicle or themselves,
that's
right?
One of the questions we talked about, right? Are you going to buy a car that has had maintenance done on it consistently, or are you going to buy a car that has no maintenance? Yeah. Right. And so I don't think we're going to I don't want to buy that car that doesn't have any maintenance on it. Right. It's got 100,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're coming from. So just thinking about this manifestation, that's something I'm looking at. What do I want? How do I want to proceed? How do I see myself going about this? And I'm going to be making that happen. And my mind doesn't know any different. As long as I'm rehearsing and I'm telling myself, I'm writing it down, I'm showing up, doing the work, that's what my mind's going to believe. If I sit here and kind of, I don't know. I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to stumble. That's what's going to happen. And as soon as it does, that's what's going to show up for me.
Yeah.
Knowing that, I might stumble. And what am I going to do? I'm just going to pick myself up and keep going.
That's right. So we would love it if you asked yourself, if I fully believed my future was possible, what would I start doing today? Give it a pause. Think about it, write it down. What would you start doing today if it was all possible?
All right. Topic 3. Compassion is a superpower.
Yeah. It's not just kindness, right? No.
It's more.
Yeah. It's just a powerful state. It changes biology. It strengthens relationships. It improves leadership and creates meaning. And this is what James Doty, he talks a lot about compassion as a leadership quality, as a human quality. He says true success without compassion often feels empty. And so he's talking about compassion with ourselves, which is huge. I think that's something we miss the boat on quite often.
Yeah.
If we're judging ourselves, we're judging others. If we're unsatisfied with ourselves, we're unsatisfied with others. If we don't love ourselves, we're going to have a really hard time loving others. And he talks about self-criticism blocks growth. So if you're working so hard on growing, maybe try something different and
don't try,
do it. Yeah. Commit to being more compassionate with yourself, less criticism. Because if you're criticizing yourself, you are criticizing others. It's pretty much 100% the fact that if there's something that you are seeing or feeling or thinking negatively about yourself or giving yourself a hard time, that you may be applying it to others.
Yeah. And then compassion. What does compassion look like? I think we can all know whether it's a family member or something that's going out that we're giving compassion to someone. How can we stop and give compassion to ourselves first, especially for the work that we're doing, not be so self-critical, not beating ourselves up, because we are our own worst critic. And this is where Dr. James Doty comes into this and talks about that compassion is more than kindness, because giving it to yourself, knowing that what compassion feels like by demonstrating it with yourself is going to help you demonstrate it and lead by example. And that's what we just kind of mentioned, right? It's hard to love someone if you don't love yourself. What is love? Right? The first word in I love you is I. And so loving yourself first, that's going to help you show up and give love to others as well. And then just coming back to the part that we're not perfect. Everything we do is we're just striving to be better. Again, I made a mistake today with the scheduling. I don't claim to be perfect. It was an error. It wasn't intentional. I'm not going to beat myself up over it too much. I was a little upset in the moment because it's like, that's not who I am. And then what do I need to do? I need to be more particular with my schedule. I need to be more on. So thank you for that lesson.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, a learning opportunity.
Yeah. It's when those things happen, and instead of criticizing ourselves, it's being more curious, right?
Yeah.
What can I do for that not to happen again?
Yeah.
How can I, reassess my schedule or whatever the matter may be, but bringing that curiosity to the table, asking yourself questions, instead of just giving yourself a hard time.
Yeah. And where does growth come from? Growth comes from making errors sometimes.
Yeah.
Growth comes from seeking knowledge. And so this area, if you're criticizing yourself all the time, it's going to be pretty hard to grow.
Absolutely.
And so this is that where self-criticism, just put it in check. Maybe, you might go there. That might be the first place that you go, but just recognize that when you do that, like, that's not helping me. How do I show up for myself? What lesson did I just learn? What do I need to do to make sure that this does not happen again?
Yeah.
And now it's a learning opportunity, right? You're winning or learning. We're never losing.
Yeah.
And then we talked about faithful attempts and learning. And so that's what today was, faithful attempts and learning.
Yeah. And just the part of what we talked about in the beginning is, we talk a lot about calming the mind and taking the breath. And these things all come together. It's not just one idea. These really overlap, because to be compassionate about yourself, maybe that might be your trigger, is to say, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths
Mm-hmm.
and then be curious about yourself. It doesn't mean these thoughts are not going to happen. It doesn't mean that you're only going to live in a perfect world where you're only going to think positive things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just recognizing those things when you think about it, so that then you can say, okay, is that the direction I want to go? And you can just flip that with your breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, if it's something you struggle with and you kind of make the same error over, or you're making a lot of mistakes in your role, this is where maybe creating a checklist comes into play. Writing things out. What do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? Did I do this? Did I do that? And you go along checking that off, checking that off, checking that off. And this is how you build more kind of consistency to doing things correctly, by showing up and doing that same thing over and over and over.
Yeah. So we would like you to ask yourself, how would I speak to myself today if I were my own greatest coach instead of my hardest critic? And I think that's really great to think, like, if I were my own greatest coach, or if you were a coach, would you talk to someone that way? So why are you talking to yourself that way? Right. So it's just really important to be curious. That's a great question, is how would I speak to myself today if I were my own greatest coach instead of my hardest critic? Because we tend to be our hardest critic. And I think it would be great just to be like, okay, what would my coach say?
Yeah.
What would my coach say? Or what would I tell somebody else?
And that's where that compassion's coming in. That's that key point of compassion and recognizing you're not perfect.
Yeah.
But we don't want to make, with that being said, it's showing up for yourself, not making the same mistake over and over and over. Obviously, you're not learning something there, right? You're ignoring it. So it's not that mistakes are going to happen. We just don't want to repeat the same mistake over and over and over.
Yes.
So at the end here, we're going to bring this all together. And so, Jessica, where do you want to kind of lead off with for you? What was pretty big here?
I think these are the thing about all of these amazing authors we talk about and the books. I love the simplicity of them. They may say a phrase in a different way, or they may have something catchy that I really, really like. I think the biggest thing I liked was when it talked about the fact that visualization doesn't replace effort, it directs it. Because I'm big on, energy, and I'm big on visualization and manifestation, but I also know that there's an action orientation to it. It's going to help me, give me my pathway to my efforts. It's going to help me with confidence and belief in self. So I think for me, that's just one of the areas that I liked about what we chatted about more today. I do think that the more we become aligned with ourselves, and the more we criticize ourselves less, the more we're going to actually be less distracted and seeking things that actually are not important to us, or things that others think we should be focused on. I think it's courageous to focus on self and be compassionate and loving and dig deep inside to really know what your truth is and who you want to be. Because a lot of people are just living to be what somebody else thinks they should be, or what they saw on social media. And I think that can be distracting. So being able to peel away all of those distractions and really sit with self silently, I think is an amazing gift.
Yeah. And what's kind of cool about this book is, again, Mind Magic. It's not necessarily about magic, right? It's just the connection that he had with where he learned this concept, this lady Ruth, that obviously had a huge, tremendous impact on his life by simply walking into this magic store. And he does have another book that's called The Magic Shop or something like that he wrote. I haven't really got into it yet, so I really can't explain, but I'm going to imagine it's probably about that day that he walked into that and what that led up to in his life as a child. But the connection here is being intentional with your thoughts, connecting your mind and your heart together. And I think this kind of blends well with what we just talked about in our last podcast on about the future version and your personality isn't permanent.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of maybe go into this book at another time about The Gap in the Game by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, of not living from our past, but living from our future. And that's what manifestation is that we're living from our future. But in order to live from our future, we need to kind of have an idea of what that version of yourself or what I look like in the future, and then be able to bring that in today. And that's where I'm living from. Those practices. I know I want to be a healthy individual, being level 56 of what do I need to do to give myself the best chance? Do I have control of the outcome? I do not. What I do have control of, though, are my actions today to help giving myself that best chance to move myself in the direction that I want to go. As you and I are preparing for High Rocks in Nashville, which is until December, I have a vision. I have a goal that I want to obtain, right? What I get to do is I get to do the work. I look at my weaknesses. Where do I have opportunities to gain, and what can I continue to improve on during this time? And I have 5 months to prepare. And so I'd love to podium, although I don't have control of that. I don't know who's showing up to this event. But what I have control of is the work that I put in. What pace can I run? What's my target? And what do I need to do to get to those targets?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're looking at right now. That's what manifestation is just going towards that. If you have a goal at work, you have a certain job, a certain role, a certain position, as a parent, as a mother, or as a father, or wherever you're at in life, what do you want that future to look like? What is that future version of you doing? And what can you do to bring that into your day today and start practicing that and manifesting that future version of you?
Yes. So some of the journal prompts that we want to give to you, we'll put in the description. And there's a few prompts about calming the mind, intentional and visualization, compassion and integration. And I don't know, we're probably not going to read them all out right now, but we'll put them in the description. But we do have a challenge that we'd like to share, practicing the Mind Magic 3. And one of those things is 5 minutes of stillness every morning, 2 minutes of visualization as you're visualizing your highest self before beginning your workday or any day, and then 1 intentional act of compassion every day for yourself or someone else. And I think that would be a really great start for someone who wants to start somewhere. And then pay attention. Journal, watch what begins to change, not just in what you actually accomplish, but how you experience life. And if you experience life in a loving way, you'll actually want to do more. If you're experiencing life through fear, it will decrease the amount of things that you want to accomplish. So I said 5 minutes of stillness in the morning, 2 minutes of visualization, and then 1 act of compassion to self or someone else.
Awesome. And the closing quote that we're going to leave you with was Dr. James Doty. The greatest force in the universe isn't the mind alone. It's a mind guided by an open heart. So your thoughts shape your attention shape your actions shape your life. The real magic isn't found outside of you. It's found in the intentional way you choose to think, love, and live each day.
Thank you for joining us at Next Level.
Good vibes only. Peace.
Congratulations. And I want to say thank you for sticking with us and listening to this topic. But I want to leave you for some actionable steps that you can take immediately after listening to this podcast or once you get into your home if you are driving. I want you to think about writing down your answers to these focused questions. What is that one thing that you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And then I'd like for you to schedule a time for that primary task that you just wrote down. So those are your actionable steps.